Hey, whoa. What? What's going on? I'm editing. Looks like you're stress eating. Maybe. Well, what are you stressed about? I don't particularly want to talk about it. You know, there's better ways to deal with stress. Like playing a musical instrument. No. Playing with kitties. Fair, but still no. Wearing a box on your head. Ooh, throwing stuff at someone. No, don't. Do a handstand. I'm gonna stick with the editing. At least stress eat something better than instant ramen, bro. Think back to the best thing you've eaten this year. Okay, that's actually a good idea. Back in April
Back in April of this year, I went to French Quarter Fest in New Orleans with a couple of friends. Tons of different unique and local food is served at various booths throughout the fest. My favorite bite came from a place called the Nori Guys. They just basically serve nori tacos. And I'm gonna mimic one of those with a fried seaweed spicy tuna taco. First things first, I need to prep my spicy tuna, which I always buy these ahi tuna steaks from Sam's. These specific ones are not marked sashimi grade, but I always buy them and I always eat them raw and never have problems. Tuna, unlike salmon, even wild caught, is almost always safe to eat raw. That being said, I'm not a doctor and this is only anecdotal evidence from me, so definitely consult somebody that knows what they're doing first. Anyway, I'm chopping a couple of these up, about a pound, into these really small cubes. Some people mince their tuna for spicy tuna, which is also fine, but this is usually just what I do. Once you've got your brunoise in a sense, I'm going to dump that into a bowl, and then I'll marinate with first a few tablespoons of mayo, specifically kewpie mayo for this. Nothing like the MSG forward and salty flavors of the kewpie. Then I usually add about half that amount in sriracha, but you can do this to taste depending on how spicy you want it. Then I just add a couple tablespoons of soy sauce to season it, and a couple teaspoons of sesame oil to flavor it. Mix that around until it's a creamy spicy tuna, and you can eat this immediately, but I like to marinate it in the fridge for a few hours if possible. Perfect for eating on its own, or sushi rolls, or poke bowls, or whatever you want. I'm also going to mix together a simple spicy mayo to top the tacos with. It's kind of the same vibe. We're just going to start with a few tablespoons more of kewpie. I had to open my second one for this. And again, about half that amount in sriracha. And just to give it some extra sweetness and shine, I like to add a little bit of hot honey. Mix that together and that's really all you need, but I came back and added a pinch of salt just to make it taste more like what it is. So good on so many things. And then we have to make some sushi rice, of course. I've done this a few times on my channel. I start with a cup or 180 grams of dry rice, and you're supposed to use sushi or short grain rice, but I don't always keep that, so I usually use jasmine rice as a backup, but I didn't even have that this time, so I'm using basmati rice here. Anything will really work. The only time short grain rice really matters is if you're making a sushi roll where it needs to stick to the seaweed on the outside. Anyway, I'm thoroughly rinsing my rice about 3 times through until the water runs pretty clear. At that point, I just stick it in the rice cooker and let it do its thing. Meanwhile, I can prep the seasoning for this, which is just going to be 60 mils or a quarter cup of rice vinegar, 20 grams or 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 3 grams or a small pinch of salt. You can heat this on the stove till it dissolves, but I just stick it in the microwave in 10-second increments and stir it until everything's dissolved. When that rice comes off, I just tend to season it inside the rice cooker, which I know is not the right way to do it. You're supposed to take it out into this really big wooden basin and then season the rice and stir it around. And you're supposed to take the spatula and kind of distribute it around everything like this. I'm really curious to know if that actually makes a difference versus just pouring this around and then stirring it. Anyway, that's seasoned and set aside. Now we can get our nori prepped. I just have these rolls of nori that are used for sushi or kimbap, and in hindsight, I think the Nori Guys just used the full sheet and fried it because it shrinks quite a bit. I cut these in half as if I were making a sushi roll with them because I thought that would be a better size. And then I even second guessed myself and cut these down in half one more time. That was definitely a mistake because they'll be too small to make tacos out of at that point because they shrink when they fry. So the ones you see at the end of this video are with a half sheet of nori, not a quarter sheet. You could just fry them as is and they'll get crispy, but I wanted to make this tempura-like batter. It's just going to add a little more crunch and flavor to the outside of the taco. So I'm just adding a half cup each of flour and liquid. That would be 60 grams of all-purpose flour with a little pinch of salt for flavor. And then most people just add plain water here, and I think that would work fine. But I'm instead going with vodka because it has a lower boiling point than water, which means it evaporates faster and it'll make a little bit more of a crispy shell. If you ever made something like cannoli, you'll know that there's alcohol in the dough and it has the same effect. You could also use like a sparkling water instead of water and it'll have a similar effect. But I just mix that all together until it's lump free. Now before frying up the nori, I want to make one more topping for my taco, and that's some fried garlic. It's a very fun and pretty topping to put on almost anything. So I have about 10 cloves of garlic, and when I have this kind of quantity, the way I peel it is putting it into 2 bowls. I shake that around for like 15 seconds, and it'll remove the skin of most of them. If I have less than this, I don't really bother with this because it takes the same amount of time to just crush them and remove the skin. But I do like this hack for a lot of garlic. Now I'm going to chop this down with a knife. I don't want it to be too fine like it would be through a press. I want noticeable sized pieces that'll brown in the frying oil instead of burn. which speaking of, I have a thin layer of neutral oil into a small saucepan. Make sure you start it at room temperature or else you will burn the garlic, so I'm just adding the garlic at this point. I'm going to keep this on a low to medium low heat so I don't burn anything, and I'm just constantly stirring. You'll just see a lot of bubbling and the garlic will rise, and then you'll finally start to see some browning after 3 to 5 minutes. I would pretty quickly move to the next step when you start to see browning because it'll burn if you wait too long. I'm just getting another slightly larger pan and then dumping the oil into that over a sieve. The sieve will catch all the garlic, which will stop cooking, but it will still carry over cook until it's a little more browned. That's why you want to remove it right when you see some browning. If you wait till it looks like this to pull it, then it's going to be too late. So now I have some garlic flavored oil that's already kind of hot, so I can move right on to the next step. I try to keep it around 350 Fahrenheit for reference, and then I can start dunking my nori strips into that batter. I tried dunking both sides at first, but it was definitely too much, so I would just dunk the bottom side and kind of let that drip off. Carefully lay that into the oil away from you and try not to let it fold over itself because it will stick immediately. It also puffs up in the middle, so I grab some chopsticks or tongs and just try to press that down and get oil all around it. I flip that about 30 seconds in just to make sure it's getting browning on both sides. And these don't need long, I just let them fry for about a minute total and then remove them to a plate. They'll dry off and crisp further as they sit. I also did fry the small sheets because I can make use of those, it's just hard to make tacos out of them. But at this point, we should have everything ready to build our tacos. So I start with the fried nori. It kind of naturally curls one way, so I put that facing up so it resembles more of a taco. Then just a small scoop of sushi rice on the bottom, a couple of spoonfuls of that spicy tuna, which is the star of the show here. Then just drizzle over a good bit of that spicy mayo. I'm just using a spoon, but a squeeze bottle would be better. I'm just being lazy. And then the one I got at French Quarter Fest looked like it had some hoisin sauce, so I'm adding a little bit of that. A small sprinkle of toasted black sesame seeds, and then some crispy garlic. Finally, some chopped scallion, and that's it. These are divine. They just kind of look really novelty-like. There's no surprising flavors in this. It's going to taste like a sushi roll or a poke bowl. But that fried nori just makes it interesting, and this is just something fun to eat. It also doesn't look exactly like what I got at French Quarter Fest, but that's okay. Let's get to the taste test.
This is the kind of stuff I think I enjoy most on this channel. Of course, I enjoy making like traditional and normal recipes, but stuff like this is just extra fun. I feel like these are something that you see on like a fancy tasting menu, or just like I've had them at a booth at a festival. And these have been sitting for quite a long time because I was frying the rest of the seaweed, but I think they've maintained their crisp just because we've used vodka and their seaweed that's been fried, so I have no idea if this is focusing. I'm so pumped. Cheers. Yeah, that's exactly what I remember from the version I had at French Quarter Fest. It's not really hard to make these flavors taste good. There's not a lot of technique, it's just good quality ingredients. It's not really hard to make these flavors taste good. There's not really a lot of technique involved. It's just good quality ingredients that you use. I will say it's a little tedious with having to fry the seaweed, but it does take it up a notch and it makes it something really exciting to eat. But if I'm being honest and I have these ingredients at home, the most common thing I'm going to do is combine them just in a bowl and eat it like that. I don't even want to go through the time of rolling them up into a sushi roll. But definitely a good idea if you want to challenge yourself or make something for your friends, something like that. That fried garlic on top is definitely a game changer. I highly recommend doing that. But I hope somebody else tries this. It was a lot of fun. That's gonna do it for me today. Thank you all for watching. Be blessed, and I'll see you next time. I will definitely be taking these Misfit boys and just grabbing the spicy tuna like so. That's all you need.